Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today's tutorial, I'm going to be going over how to make a channel banner for your server. And just for reference, channel banners are the banners you upload to any channel, then you add rules below it or any other information that you're looking to include. Now, of course, all of the banners are labeled channel banners, and Discord only are not Discord only. You can use them on any other platform. With small adjustments, they are really versatile in their usability. Now, before I jump too far into this specific tutorial, you may be wondering where you can get these little icons. For example, this stylized Twitter logo and this stylized YouTube logo. Well, there's this wonderful site called Icons 8, and this specific section is color hand drawn, which is one of my favorite. So once you find an icon here that you like, so for example this Facebook Messenger icon, you can either download it with this button and they want you to sign in, and I'm not really sure how that works, so I don't want to have to pay anything or anything else, but I can right click, go to inspect, open that up, and then open this up. As you can see, the entire time the blue is highlighting the specific image. Then I have this. I can drop it over here and then right click, save image as, and it's going to be completely transparent for me to use. Just a helpful little tip. Now, I'm sure it is a completely free service. They wouldn't let you just download that if they want you to pay for it. So don't feel like you're scamming them or something. I just don't want to be bombarded with newsletters or anything else that they might try to send my way. And that's just a helpful way to get around that. So without further delay, let's just jump right into the tutorial. I'm going to start off by going to File, New, and then 1200 by 530 as our canvas. Now, of course, this is much larger than we'll be using, but it gives us extra wiggle room if we need it. So I'm going to create a new layer and then delete the background. Then I'm just going to pop over to this left side, hold down my left mouse button if necessary, and select the rectangle tool, and it should be the default tool, so unless you were messing around with other tools here, you should be perfectly fine. And then I'm just going to drop this down. As you can see, this looks nothing at all like we want it to look. It's just a dotted rectangular shape in a completely different color than we'll be using. So we're going to go over properties, and now if you do not see the properties tab on the right, just go over to Window, scroll down to Properties, click it, and it will then pop up on the right side. And before I forget, you can do all of this as well on a website called Photopia. They offer really similar things to Photoshop, completely free, no downloads. It's a website, you can work on it anywhere. You don't need a certain amount of computer processing power or graphical power to actually work on your projects, because again, it is all online. So if you can't afford Photoshop or you don't want to pay for Photoshop, that's a great free alternative. And because it is so similar to Photoshop, almost a carbon copy, you can follow along step by step. Now, of course, I do encourage you to actually buy Photoshop if you're going to get really into depth with editing banners and general image editing. But it's a great, just free way to make simple stuff like this, and I recommend it for everybody. So property is going to pop up, and once it's popped up, we're going to go over to fill, and we're going to make the fill the following color, and pause if you have to get that hex code. So I'm going to click that, go over to stroke, I'm going to click the white box with the red dash through it to get rid of that stroke. And for the actual sizing, I'm going to put these at 0 because I do not want a curve on this. And then for the width of this box, I'm going to put 670. And for the height, I'm going to set that at 200. Perfect. I'm going to take this and make sure it is centered. I'm holding shift, and these purple guiding lines popped up for me in Photoshop to help me navigate that position. Now I'm going to do Control T to group that, Control G, and we'll call this the base area. Then right click on the eyeball, let's make this red to keep ourselves organized, and this I'll call the base. Now I'm going to right click on this base, go to blending options, go over to stroke, and the color I want to use for this one is the following. Once again, pause if necessary. 4 pixels, click OK. Now I'm going to do Control J to duplicate that. I'm going to rename this to the base, and this is going to be the drop shadow thing. I can't think of a proper name for it, so that's what it's going to be. And the color for this one is going to be this right here. So click OK, and then I'm going to take this, do Control T, and I'm going to rotate it to about here, and then I'm going to move it over to the right, because I just want it poking out a bit at the top and poking out a bit on the right side. And I think that should be sufficient, question mark. Maybe a little bit less. Yep, that's nice. So from here, we can go ahead and create another new layer. We're going to clip this layer on. We're going to go over to the following color. And then we're going to go over to our ellipse tool. And we're going to drop it down while holding shift if necessary. Because I unchecked this little chain link here, I have to hold shift when I draw it. And the reason I unchecked it is if I'm manually editing these properties, it's going to want to keep them proportional. So I had to unlink that to edit it to whatever sizing I wanted it to be at. So for this, we do want to keep the stroke, and we want the stroke at about 4 pixels. And let's put this right around here. And then the opacity, we're just going to drop that down to say 32%, 26%. I'm happy with that. Then Control J and clip that again. We'll put one right over here. And then we'll do a Control J again. This we'll call the stroke circle. And then same thing over there. This will clip on and we'll call the dot circle. This one will bring down. We're going to bring the sizing down to just 9 pixels. And no stroke, but instead we're going to have a fill in that very same color. Put the first dot right around here, and the second dot right around over here. Now for the final touch in this section, we're going to create another new layer. Go over to the left side, hold it down for more options, go to our rectangle tool, and this time we do want to keep the dashed line settings, but perhaps let's bring it down to 5 pixels, maybe even 4. Let's keep it at 4, and let's extend it just a tad. As you can see, this is way too large of a shape. We just want the actual line, so from here we're going to right click, rasterize layer, go to our rectangular marquee tool, highlight over this section, delete, highlight over that section, delete, and then delete the bottom. Then let's make sure this is a size we are happy with, and I am quite content with that. Make sure it is all positions as we want it. And the same thing, we're going to bring the opacity down to around 26%. Let's clip it, and let's just call this the line. Now we're going to leave the space area for the time being, create a new layer. Let's group that up, right click on the eyeball, let's make this yellow, and we'll call this text. Now we're going to come over to the left side, go to our horizontal type tool, which is the default type tool. Click down, we'll put in socials. Make sure you're using Arial rounded empty bold, but you can really use any thinnish font. This font's a bit too thick for what I had in mind, but it works. And then for the size, of course, we have to go with 69. Now we're going to go ahead and center that to the best of our ability. The guiding line can be a little wonky with it, but that should be good. Now we can close out the text tool, go back to our base, create a new layer, Control G, and we'll call this the icons. And create one more before we forget. Control G that one, and let's call this the stars. So for our icons, it's really up to you depending on what the banner's for, because mine is for social media. I'm using a Twitter, and I had an Instagram one pulled up as well, but it didn't look quite as nice, so I'm just going to close out of that. We'll be using YouTube, wrong one, YouTube, and Twitter. So for the YouTube one, we're going to do Control T, and because I have it unlinked, I have to hold Shift when I resize it to keep it proportional. And the YouTube one will go right around here after one rotation. And then the Twitter one, make sure I name it so I keep myself organized. Delete the extra layer. And Twitter one is going to go right here, one rotation. Not too large, but still clearly visible. Go right there. Now close out the icons, and now we're going to move on to the stars. So we have a star shape. Let's go ahead and drag that in. Now for this, we're going to right click, go to blending options, go to color overlay, and we'll be using the following color for this star. Again, pause if necessary. Then we're going to go over to stroke, and the color we're going to use for the stroke is the same color we used for the text. I don't think I said what the text color was, but here is a text color, and pause if you need to grab that. Click OK. I'm going to leave it at 4 pixels for now, and we'll see how it looks once I downsize it. So we'll call this large star. This is going to be the one at the very top. Let's bring this down, rotate it once, and that's still too large. Right around there should work. I'm going to click that OK. Control J, we'll call this the medium star. This one's going to go on the left side, and actually same rotation. We'll put it right around here, and it's a tad smaller. And looks like 4 pixels was a good choice. And this one is going to be pink. Make sure we get that color in there. Pause if you need to. And then for the final star, we're going to do Control J and call this the small star. And take this, rotate it, bring it over, and downsize it just a tad to get our smallest star. Right around here, blending options, color overlay, and drop that in. Great, so we have all of our stars and just about everything in place. That leaves us one more step, and that being the top little banner. So close out the stars, close out the icons, or I was already closed out of them. And actually, I'm going to group this whole base area together as well, just to keep it nice and organized. I call this the base stuff. And then let's create another new layer, Control G, just make sure it is blue, just to keep ourselves organized. And we'll call this the top ribbon. That's a better word for it. And we're going to return to this left side, grab our rectangle tool, drop it down. We want 10 pixels for the edges. We do not want a stroke, and for the fill, we'll be using the following color. Perfect. Then for the sizing, we'll do 175 by 48. Let's make sure this is nice and centered. It's not too big of a deal at the moment because we will be making adjustments to it. I recommend creating a backup, so I'm just going to do Control J, name this the backup, and this one is going to be the base. Right click, rasterize layer style, and there's different ways you can go about doing this. Mine is arguably the messiest, but you can either use the lasso tool or the pen tool, and we're going to create little waves inside of this. So it might take a few attempts, but essentially we want to curve around this, and then we want to curve in, and then curve back out, curve in, and then curve back out, right around the ends, go all the way back, and the curve we only want to go in as far as where this curve here ends. So let's see how that one looks. Not all that great, but for yourself, you can go through and mess around with it a few times until you have the desired effects. Now, we can take the time to try to copy this over to the other side. Or we can go to our rectangular marquee tool, hover over or highlight over this until we hit the center, do Control J, delete the base, call this the base, do Control J, do Control T, go to the width, add a minus to the front of it, click check mark, drag it over, and then just merge down, and we have our new base. And right click, blending options, go over to stroke, and it'll be the same stroke color as before. And I might want to bring this down to 3 pixels actually. So click OK there. Now I'm going to create a new layer, and here I'm going to have the pattern lines. Actually, I did not need to create a new layer to do that. So this is going to be the lines, and the lines they're going to make in the same color as the blue. So color overlay, and we'll use that same blue color. And for this, we're gonna change the blending options over to screen and drop the opacity to, actually I need to rasterize it first. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Rasterize, then we go over to screen, and then the opacity down to about 60%. Control T, let's flip the width. So we have the back part going down to the right, and then these lines will also be going down to the right. I'm going to adjust the size just a bit, and that is perfect. So top ribbon, I'm then going to take these two and add a bit of a curve to it, just like so, and now it fits just a bit better. And before I forget, well, I did forget, but then I remembered, we're going to go over to this, back to this base area, go over to our large star, and create a new layer. Go over to this left side for our rectangle tool. I'm going to actually sample that same exact color. Then I'm going to create a straight line, no stroke. We want the fill in that color. So the first line, that is probably fine. Control J, Control T. And for the second line, I want it to be a bit wider, right around there. I'm going to clip both of these on. I'm going to call this the gloss line. It's also going to be the gloss line. And we want to use that same effect that we had on the other one. Go ahead and bring both of these over, right around there. For the line, we're going to put it as a screen, and then bring the opacity down just a tad. So actually we need to get rid of that color overlay, so I'm going to copy layer style, hide the stroke for now, then right click, rasterize layer style, right click, paste layer style, and then hide the color overlay. And now this gloss line is showing up. So this is the first line, I'll put there. Second line, paste layer style, I'm going to put right, should I put that one there, and then the smaller one over farther to the right side of it. And now that's all glossy. From here, marquee tool, highlight over the entire thing, edit, copy merged, file, new, creates, Control V. Oh my goodness, what did you do there? Edit, copy merged, file, new, creates, Control V, there we go. And from here, we can either do file, export, save for web, or file, save as, and choose PNG. That's really it for this tutorial. I hope you found this banner tutorial helpful and you will end up using it for whatever purpose you have intended for it. I hope you all have an awesome day.